I'm Cynthia Marks, and I head up the Holistic Psychoanalysis Foundation, established by my late husband, Dr. Bernard Bale. Welcome to And Now Love. Today, we are diving deep into the power of community, art as healing, and finding purpose in unexpected places. My guest today is a visionary artist, community organizer, and a true Renaissance man of the streets. Known as a community arts manager at the Sidewalk Project and the creative force behind Show's Art, he has transformed public spaces with over 50 murals, centering the voices of the unsheltered and reimagining art as a tool for justice and liberation. He's a painter, a father, and an advocate who believes that art is a precious bridge to connection and community. Please welcome the incredible Crushow Herring.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
We're so happy to have you here. Very excited to talk with you. There's so many things to talk about. We're going to run out of time.
Oh, well, hey,
that's how it goes.
Hey, you know what? I just appreciate the opportunity. Blessings so much.
Thank you. So I'm so curious, I think we'll all be so curious kind of about your journey, the life that you've led, sort of where you came from, how you ended up doing all of these fabulous things that you're doing, which for you, you might say, just who I am. I don't know that that's fabulous. It's just what I do. It's just my calling.
Yeah,
so tell us about you.
Born in Kansas City, Missouri. My mother and my father, both of artists. They both draw. Coming from background of artists, my mom's uncles, and they drew on her father's side. And then my grandmother on my dad's side, my dad's mom, she was an artist. So the art is really in my family, but I really feel
family-wide
I
calling.
really feel we're all artists. Like we're born artists.
All of us.
All of us.
I think so too.
The first thing we do before we before we write is draw. We sing before we talk, and we dance before we walk. Yeah. You know, and then the world starts to try to form you, or you try to form yourself to the world. Sure. You know, I think a lot of individuals tend to find their way that they wish to express themselves, and some don't like to see it visually when they do it traditionally. So we do it within our dress, maybe, not realizing that that's the art, and that's not tapping into it enough for me, just for me to do it in my dress. I do dress how I feel, but I also like to express visually how I feel with my natural talents. So, I've learned to find myself that way. Even moving here, mom moved me and my brother here at a young age, being a single mom. The first place I moved to in Los Angeles was the Jungles over on the west side of LA.
Describe what that is.
The Jungles is a housing complex, group of housing complex. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, it was high-end condos for the African-American area in South Central LA. It's right off of La Cienega, between La Cienega and La Brea, or actually between La Brea and La Cienega. La Brea and Crenshaw, off of King Boulevard, and near Dorsey High School. At that time, really wasn't as heavy in gangs, but as it, went further on throughout the 80s, the neighborhood turned, as most neighborhoods turn to protect themselves. So the Jungle is a area for the blood gangs, but the blood gang that they're heavily involved in comes from like the Black P. Stones and Black history and Black culture and protecting the culture. So it's one of the neighborhoods that's actually authentically a revolutionary area, but most gangs are all about being revolutionary. Like a Crip is Community Revolutionary in Progress. It's all an acronym for people that wish to take care of their community and just infiltrate it with the feds and things like that, of why we have our our triumphs. So growing up in South Central LA with a single mom and a little brother, a little different, but
Coming from someplace so
coming from Kansas
removed
City,
from.
yeah. But being so young, coming from Kansas City, California was just a, a bright light of opportunity, and I appreciate it. Mom moved me and my brother here because found ourselves with, you know, two different households. Mom divorcing my father, visitation rights. When it came his time to see us on the weekends, we found ourselves looking around the corner, constantly pacing and waiting for him to show. Being a father now, I totally understand it. Trying to keep things going. I don't have a separate family outside of the one I've created, so I'm pretty much sure he probably was in a rock and a hard place. But that left me. I can't speak for my little brother, but it left me looking for him, or constantly wanting to know when would I see him. If I didn't see him that weekend, then it would be me looking for him throughout the whole week, because I knew he worked at a freight company and a trucking company called Yellow Freight. Me being a kid, I'm not knowing he doesn't drive the trucks, you know, because when I go see him, he would put me in a truck and drive it around the yard.
So you thought that's what he was doing?
So I thought he drove trucks, so I would constantly want to look inside the truck for my father. So I think Mom really saw it as a time for us to just get away, you know? Yeah.
And was the idea for her?
You never know what trauma you still have.
I know.
And you know what?
Look.
I don't want to say that's trauma. I love my father so much that it feels good to know how much I missed him and look for him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to say trauma. I don't want to say I had trauma in my life. I've had things that molded me to be who I am.
Well, it's a beautiful thing that you feel your feelings.
Man, I'm just so happy to be able to have them.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a bad thing. I'm glad to have my feelings that I have. It's made me who I am, you know, and it makes me see things the way I do.
And
So,
I see that about you. But most of us, you know, have been told we don't have time for feelings.
oh no, gotta do
Our
that.
feelings make us weak. Our feelings don't, you know, propel us forward. Anyway, I'm interrupting your story.
No, not
And
at all. No,
so
that's exactly what it is.
was your mom thinking that if you guys moved here, that longing that you had, that need that she probably thought your dad couldn't fill because of all that he had going on would be lessened?
Well, more than anything, I wouldn't have time to look for him.
I see.
You know, he can't. There's no way he can come right around the corner, me being here in California and him being in Missouri. So it made it to where to just do my day, you know, do my day regardless. Yeah, it doesn't mean that I won't, you know, yeah, I'm not seeing him, but at the same time, I don't have time to worry about him. There's so much other things that I have to accomplish and so much opportunity out here, you know, to get into what I wanted to be in.
So it was easy enough for you to fill that space.
Easy enough for me to fill that space. And so when the time would come, it would be there for me to do. You know, being in Missouri, not as much opportunity. It's not like it's a small place. It's not. I wasn't in a country town. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, so it's you know, it's metropolitan.
We're just so far-reaching here. It's like anything you could possibly imagine.
You can do it here in California. Yeah. So I mean, it was a blessing. You know, Jehovah has a plan regardless of how we see it.
So you guys moved here.
Moved here. First time I moved here, I was 3. My mom went and tried to separate because she had saw that my father was extending to go ahead and try another relationship. Being young and with a newborn, my brother was no more than maybe a year old, almost 2. I think the conversation of him calling made her like, okay, well, I'll go back and try it. So back here by 8, 9 years old, and been here in Los Angeles since. Yeah.
And so you went to school here. You
Elementary school here. I went to started off at Santa Barbara Elementary when King was Santa Barbara Boulevard, and ended up graduating from King Elementary. So basically Santa Barbara, King Elementary. Over in not too far from USC in the Coliseum. From there, Mom didn't want me going to the junior high school that was in that neighborhood, which is Audubon and Fauché. So she sent me to the west side, to Westchester. I went to Overwright Junior High School, you know. There, that's where I started learning more of graffiti and things of that fashion, and learned about street art. Um,
And was the graffiti uh, a f- strictly a form of art for you, or was it a way of making a statement in the form of art?
well, I ended up getting into the graffiti because me being an artist, I thought it was, well, at the time I thought they were artists, the graffiti artists. My friends at school they had black books. So my black book has art in it, but their black book actually has graffiti art. So while I'm drawing portraits or trying to draw and get better at my craft, they're getting better at their penmanship with letters. But you don't know what's inside of a book. You know, you have to get next to the person before they open up the book to actually show you what they're doing. You know, so I would say food. But it was great because I'm thinking that they are drawing in their books when they're actually working on their manuscript.
So they're
They're
practicing.
practicing their hand and their styles when it comes to letters. I didn't put any attention on art, even though I was doing it most of the time to make myself, you know, it's my, how I couldn't say I had anxiety or I'm nervous with things like that because my whole thing is I always knew I could draw, and I always knew I had a pen or something in that fashion. So I used it as a icebreaker or used it to connect, but I didn't see myself being an artist. I went to school when I graduated from high school. My whole thing was, okay, I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna play basketball, but I'm gonna go to college to be an architect, and I'm gonna learn math because at that time in the 90s it was they'll pay you so much money to teach American math in China. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'll become an architect, and then I'll do math as a minor, and I'll go to China, and I'll be an architect, making real good money being an architect, but I'll teach math in the meantime to make sure I can make some money. So that was just the mindset when I went to college. Yeah. But it changed. Once I got into school, the lines for being an architect and AutoCAD were just too lenient. I started wanting to draw on my blueprints. The AutoCAD would come out and my whole blueprint would be there, the whole floor plan.
And I just wanted to draw
in the bathroom and start adding. And then my AutoCAD teacher say, "What's this here?" And I'm like, "Well, that's a picture frame. You're seeing it from the top, so the picture would sit here." And he's like,
"No,
you need to go in interior decorating." And so that did it again. I was so homophobe growing up. Growing up in the time I grew up in, it wasn't so normal to have gay friends, or it wasn't normal to be gay. It was something that when you saw it was like, okay, that's weird. And coming from Kansas City, Missouri, and then being here in LA, even though LA was the most liberal place you could see it, it wasn't culture. So my thing was, I don't want to do art, because who knows, I wouldn't change it now, but I mean, things probably could have been totally different. I had a NBA Hall of Famer, Willis Reed, who wanted me to come, wanted me to come to Pratt Institute in New York for me to do my 4 years of college, but I had never seen Pratt in the NCAA tournament. I knew nothing about Pratt,
Where does this show up?
Yeah, and then at the same time, it shows how much I didn't know about basketball because Willis Reed's a Hall of Famer. He's a great, and his name didn't ring a bell to me,
Wasn't what you followed, but yeah. Still. So did you pursue basketball then?
I pursued basketball, but I didn't go that route. I went a little longer route. I ended up going to junior college. Did 3 years of junior college, and then transferred to a university. Had a real good junior college career, playing basketball. Finished with an AA, wanting to do as much as I can still with basketball. And the only opportunity I had that was making sense after Florida was the Oklahoma, Panhandle State. But it was a great school because I gained some good friends. The coach was actually a great asset for me because mentally he was a psychology major. So he knew how to tap into me and to focus on getting my attention of how I needed to grow as an athlete and as a leader. So that helped out for my journey after I left there. I didn't stay the whole year because of
Sometimes these
injuries.
little random experiences,
Yeah,
make such big impacts on
big
us.
impacts.
I
Yeah,
think, where would I have been had I not had that moment in time?
and that's where I started tapping into my art real heavy. There, I did tattoos to pay for bills and to in between scholarship and grant money, Pell Grant. I did that. Yeah, but I really tapped into my art when I went to Panhandle because small school. So I started putting my artwork in a school paper. Working with a friend of mine who's a comedian now. Shouts out to Rob Love. He's a great writer. So he'd write the poems, and then I would do the artwork, and we were putting that in the school paper. So that's where I started really tapping back into my art.
So, how did you get back here? Or what did being back here mean to you? How did
I actually snuck away real fast, like I think like 3 months right before school was out, up in Northern California. Before I came back home, I actually left and tried to go to China for a while, and well, not for a while, to see if it was feasible and if I could do it. Didn't last more than a week and a half, 2 weeks before I was back because I noticed when I went to Shanghai, well, Beijing, excuse me, I went to Beijing, I didn't have a translator and my per diem was running late. It seemed like I always had to beg for my per diem. So when you go out to look for a college or when a college is wanting you, they actually give you a guide. They take care of you. They show you that they want you. So being young, like 19, almost 20, I actually saw that, hey, this looks like I'm just jumping out on the edge. It doesn't look like it's too promising. So I came back and finished school. Once I came back is when that's when things I think hit me. I think the biggest lie that I believed so much growing up was liberty and justice for all.
so? How describe that briefly? How did that hit you? How did you realize that wasn't a truth in your world?
Doing what I felt was so well in college, you don't realize people can notice when you're a jock on campus or when you're someone different or a student athlete. Student athlete isn't really easy, but you do get different treatment while you're on campus.
Regardless if you're black or white,
Well, if you're black or white, you get a real good treatment.
you're seen. There's
You're
kind
seen. You're seen. You're just not a number. I
and
can
you
say
weren't
that.
thinking that was being called out in a special way. You just, this is, I am who I am.
I am who I am, but you don't realize the aura or the energy that it gives. I mean, because even when I went and I did overseas or I tried it, it was still the same. Being over across the water, I don't look like most that are there, So it's actually like if I have a Letterman's jacket on, especially if I'm walking around those that are considered athletes in the country. But you don't realize it when you're a young person that it's just another campus you're walking on and people can notice it. But when you come back to America, you look like everyone is here, and there's no specialty around you because I've always been an elite 13-year-old. I've always been elite 15, 6, wherever I'm at in my realm. I've always felt that I'm hanging with the elite. Coming back, not being on a certain, like I tell youth today, you want to connect yourself with a certain ship. We're here in the ocean overall, but we want to jump ship from our parents, and a lot of times that's just a little floaty. You're thinking it's a ship and you're thinking you can do it, but it's basically just a floaty. It's not even a raft. It's not even a boat. It's an inner tube. Anytime someone can pop. So for me, noticing that, I was like, okay, I need to connect myself, but with something. I'm too old to go to school. I'm too old to do something to where they actually can see that I'm a factor here, and to feel that way at like 22, 23 is kind of like, it throws you. From the age of 21 to 25, no one's actually trying to see how to help you anymore. If you're not in one of these institutions, on one of these ships, you're an adult, and you're an adult that's not connected to one of these institutions or one of these ships, so you're treading water.
Yeah, no guidance.
Yeah, no guidance. So while I'm treading water, it was that's where things started to hit me to where it's like, hold on. I thought they told me if I graduated and if I went to school and I did these things, I would actually be considered different. But I noticed once I got back to America, I was a nigga again. I was black again. And that is where I had my mental breakdown to where it was like, okay, I became a statistic. I was already a statistic by single mom growing up, you know, in LA. They already have set back, and now I've became it because most single moms that raise their kids as males, they have a real big, maybe 50 to 60% chance of going to jail. So I helped it out more by, you know, once I got back to here to LA, I started selling drugs, and that's how I become into Skid Row. That was the my where things flipped for me. I was working
And
at
in
the YMCA.
selling drugs, was that sort of giving you back that, you know, little bit of entitlement? You know, I am important. These people in this community need me. Come to me.
Yeah. Once I come back in, I'm working at the YMCA. And the reason why I'm at the YMCA is because I want to build, I still want to go and play ball professionally. When I get to the YMCA, a friend of mine is constantly needing to help me out by the time I get to my last check. And I'm asking him for money to borrow. And every time he's giving me some money to borrow, he's peeling it off of a stack of money. And my mind is, of course, I assume, and I'm not interested. But after a while, it gets to where I'm like, you know what? Whatever you're doing, I'm not wanting to be in this hardship anymore. And I ask him to bring me wherever he's going, and that's in Skid Row. This was 28 years ago. And from that point, coming into Skid Row, I end up getting a different love for it. I wanted to ask the questions of how it became the Row. I wanted to ask the questions for my participants and those that were buying drugs from me, because my thing is, I'm trusting you with my life when I hand you anything. You could easily go to the cops. You could easily say I robbed you. So I wanted a connection with who I was selling to. And that's how I become Mr. Fifth and Crocker, and that's how I become the organizer in Skid Row, because I want to know you and I want to have a relationship with you. So if you do get caught, you appreciate me enough to where you don't want me to get caught. And I become friends with the community, and that kind of shifted my whole mindset when I hear a person why the substance abuse was needed. I start to learn why the black market drug is needed. I start to learn those that have ran into their hardship, lost their family, not having family, being outcasted because of what they're needing, because they've lost their insurance. Their husband has passed, so now they don't have the money that they had before to get what they need. So this is how this whole community is built, and I start to have a heart for it.
But did you start really as kind of a form of self-preservation? I've got to make a connection with these people because
I don't want to go to jail.
Because you didn't want to go to jail.
I have to make a connection with these people because I need them to know the person I am, to where if it does get bad. And plus I was in the area with a bunch of wolves. You know, I'm a gazelle. You know, I'm coming out of college. You know, I don't, you know, I'm totally different than those I'm around. And not saying no one else went to college. That's what I ended up learning, that we're in a pod. It's like gumbo. Everyone's been through something, but that's where I start to learn that
and everybody has their own unique set of circumstances. And as you're trying to make this connection for self-preservation, you are now hearing these people, and then you go beyond hearing these people and you're kind of in their heart and they're in your heart. And now you're like, geez, I've got a relationship with this person.
You know, and it gets to where after a while, I start doing so well, and things come to where...
You mean financially?
Not even financially, just life, because I just wasn't a drug dealer. You know, I worked at the YMCA. I still played basketball. I was still I only did drug dealing for 3 or 4 hours out of the day. But what happens is I end up meeting my partner. Um, and once I meet her, things change for me. I wanna be there and I wanna hang out with her. And so
And where did you two meet?
skating rink, right? So it happens because let me think.
Americana.
Yeah, well, what skating rink was this? It was Cerritos. My mom met my dad at the skating rink. Yeah. And so for me, all the way until my 8th birthday, I would wish for my father, right? When it's time for me to do the candles, to blow the candles out,
That was
I
your
wish for my
birthday
dad.
wish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my birthday wish. So meeting my partner Charlie, I meet her at the skating rink the same way my mom met my dad. So for me, it was like a sign that, okay, this is your wish, and what are you gonna do with it, right? So I start spending more time with her instead of going onto the block or going out into the streets to make the money. So it kind of saved me.
But then you kept going back to Skid Row.
Oh, I'm gonna constantly go. It's how I make money. And she even wanted me to quit. She's like, "Hey, why don't you start doing your artwork?" And I'm like, "Well, if you have a kid, I'll quit. I'll get into my art if you have my son." So my son saved my life.
And did you just know that having a son was part
It wasn't even if it was a son. If I just had a seed, I wasn't gonna leave it behind like my father left me and my brother. Right?
yeah, a chance to do
Man,
this well.
everything.
And did
Everything.
you
And kids give that to you. Like even with my partner, like she can think whatever she wants. But my kids, I can be what I want to for my kids. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. You're right.
That's what it
what
is.
a gift you
I
were
write
given.
my own story with
Yeah.
them.
And so you eventually stopped selling drugs to your
Yeah.
friends in Skid
When
Row.
my son comes, so it's been 20 years. So when my son comes, that's my joy. My daughter is too, but my son is man, that's me. That's my little guy. Yeah, yeah. So I figure he's my best art that I've ever done. So I named him Artiste. He's a canvas, 6'5", tall, and he's amazing. And my daughter is too. Daughter's amazing. Kids are amazing. But it drove me to want to be there for them and to actually give it a chance and hopefully not make them a statistic, and that I can be as much as I want to be for them. And
And to be authentically who you
I
were,
think
this
who I am.
artist
Yeah.
that how do you best show your kids what their good life can be if you're not living your true good
Yeah.
life, being
but
who
me
you really
doing the
are?
art really brought it into perspective because at the time when I had the kids, I started doing my organization and my organizing in Skid Row with OG Manuel Benito Campito. I saw OG walking out of his building when I was selling drugs, and I would laugh at him because he was taking his art supplies, and it'd be like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and he's heading to Venice Beach. And I'm like, "Oh man, where are you going? Like, where are you going with this art?" He's like, "Well, I'm going to Venice Beach to sell my artwork." And I laugh. I'm like, "Yeah, okay. No, nobody's buying art."
Yeah, good luck.
And OG Man's like, "Nobody's buying your art." Man, he's my guy. So OG Man is up. He comes back later on that day. I catch him later on that day. He comes back and he spends big money with me. And I'm thinking to myself, like,
What's going on?
yeah, like I'm risking my life. And this man just said he was going to sell artwork. He just came back and spent over $200. Like, what is he doing? Yeah, what is he doing that he's able to do this? So I started really keying in and watching OG Man. And one day he told me, he said, "Hey, I'm doing something with some kids, and I'd like to see if you come by and talk with them." Because we had been talking back and forth when he'd come out before he'd go do his art. He'd come back, and he says, "I'd like for you to come talk with the kids." He found out I was a basketball player. But I used to draw while I'm on the neighborhood. That was the thing. I would draw while I'm waiting for a sale, right? So I'm doing some artwork while I'm waiting on a sale to come or waiting on someone to come talk with me. So he knew I was an artist, but he saw and heard I played basketball because it's going around the whole thing. Plus, I dribble. I'm not just wanting to sit downtown. So I'd work on things. I work on my art or I work on my basketball handles while I'm waiting, you know? This is a place where everyone's not doing anything constructive to me. So I can't be doing bad by me doing this. The police shouldn't mind it. You know, I should slip their radar, even though a guy with a basketball and drawing is really going to draw attention. But I'm not doing what you think I'm doing. You know, I'm waiting for something to happen for me, my housing or whatever excuse I had. You know, it was just an excuse I would have if something came up. I'm waiting for something. But OG man, we would talk, and he said, "I want you to come talk with these kids." And that's when things started to change for me. I hadn't had my kid yet. But now I can't give advice and be a mentor if these kids see me selling drugs. Yeah. So now I must watch how I'm downtown. And then I started getting more invested with OG man to where my mom was economic developer, one of the economic developers of South LA, and helping, you know, nonprofits create and helping them get their funding. So I'm seeing what OG man is wanting to do here in Skid Row, and I'm saying to myself, like, hey, do you love yourself more than you love people? Because this man needs this money. Like, if he could really talk with your mom, things could probably change for Skid Row. And it was like a big epiphany. It was like, okay, you know what? I need to connect my mother with OG man. But I couldn't do that because now how would I tell my mom I'm in Skid Row and what am I doing? Like, a mother knows their kid, you know? So he offered me that time to talk with those kids. So I was like, okay, this is the time I actually could do something. And then I'll have pictures to like kind of show mom, like, hey, look, I went and talked with this guy. Because I just couldn't bring up OG, man. Well, how do you know him? Right. What are you doing? Yeah, where are you knowing this guy from? You know, so once I did the kids, I was able to, hey, mom, I just went and talked with these kids down in Skid Row. I worked with this guy named OG, man. So now I was able to connect my mom. But at any time, she could pop up. So I had to start changing everything about it. So I that's what I was letting my partner know, Charlie, like, hey, look, I want to have a kid, and if you want to date me, I want to have a kid. And she's in college, she's not wanting a kid. She's like, no, I'm okay. And I'm like, well, hey, I want a kid, and I think it'd change me. Well, I didn't say that. That's how I'm feeling. And her whole thing was like, well, no, if I have a kid, you end up going to jail because you haven't stopped it. And I was like, no, if you have a kid, I'll quit selling drugs because I want to take care of the kid. So when my son was born is when I left it totally alone, and I had another life-changing experience because me doing it while I was selling drugs and he's born, I ended up having my whole house. I ended up going through an illegal eviction with my landlord. She was a sheriff. So she illegally evicted me out of my place. But at the same time, while she did it, it was a blessing. But she took my safe where I had all my money saved in. I was going to start a store with custom shoes and doing my artwork, basically a boutique in LA. Just was looking for the building. And she basically broke in my house and took everything I had. So my son's 3 months old at that time. So I go through a civil court to try to get as much money as I can back, not reward the money. She ends up countersuing. Things go haywire from that point. So I start off with my son at 3 months old being homeless and unsheltered. Couch for couch, house from house. My partner hadn't had a great job at the moment. She was still trying to get on with her logistics job. So things hadn't got hard. So my son's upbringing was a little harder than my daughter's because we had everything snatched from up under us, you know. And at the time, you know, I said I wasn't going to sell drugs, but I think that's what it was. It was a test because it's real easy to quit when you have everything. So it was easy for me to walk away with $15,000 saved, over $30,000 worth of merchandise. Well, I wouldn't say 30, over $12,000 to $20,000 worth of merchandise.
Enough for you to feel comfortable.
Yeah, enough to feel comfortable and start over. And that was all taken away. And I think it was, well, I don't think.
It was a test for you.
It was a test for me.
Yeah.
Jehovah had a test. Yeah, and that's what I think really made us work with OG Man and then establish the Sidewalk Project. It's about catching catching those, because we're all one day and a check away. I think we saw that when COVID hit.
Well, and look what happened to you when you couldn't pay your rent and you lost everything you had, and here you are with your son living.
Yeah, 3 months. You know, no, I think that was more so, like I said, I think it was a sign. I always said if I had the kid, I would leave the drugs alone. So I think that was more so, we go through tests. I feel this is a test like going to school, and so much you think you can pass the note while the teacher's not looking, or you can make your cheat sheet so small so you can just lift it up and look. There's no way you can cheat this, So I think every day you say you've grown, and you say you've learned this and that, and I think you're tested with that as you move through your journey. Like, how much have you changed? Like I have these stitches now in my lip now, and it's more so I'm not the peddler that I was in the streets before I have a badge. I have my own nonprofit. So I'm actually looked at as speaking as a positive person there. And I should always direct myself in that manner. And like we were speaking earlier today, it's hard for me to do outreach because I become my community and I become where I came from. And the only thing I know how to do is survive that to get where I need to. So I'm not able to focus that this organization is on my back with me being a co-founder and someone that helped bring it into the community.
So what is the Sidewalk Project?
The Sidewalk Project, we're an art organization, heavily ran and organized and powered, driven by women and artists and trans community. My co-founder she is the founder and co-founder, her and Stacy D. Soma. Soma, when I met her 8 years ago, they came into the community to help me do an art project with some friends of mine. And from that was Halloween in 2017. And then from there, they wanted to come again Christmas and do another project just to get to know the community more, and more so working with the community instead of us just doing the art project. So we handed out.
Was this happening at Skid Row?
This is in Skid Row. Yeah, this was 2017. 2017 December, after we did our event for Halloween. And afterwards, I thought from the two events we did, it went real well on how we worked together. The community was real receptive of it. They liked it. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do it more than just on these holidays, because we need it every day. And they agreed. And my friends were like, hey, why don't you talk with the sisters? Because they're the reason why we came this second time. We came the first time because we wanted to do the art project. Mm-hmm. But this one was because they wanted to get into the community. So I didn't know that they were wanting to find a place to actually start doing their outreach and engaging. And they were looking at Hollywood. And then once they seen Skid Row and worked with me, they were questioning and tossing up if they wanted to actually make Skid Row their home and their home base to work out of. Because they do a lot of traveling because we're artists. So they're artists in music industry and writing plays and performing artists and also traditional artists.
And so is the idea that you bring art into the community?
We use it as our icebreaker.
I see.
If we're going to come to a community, we're not telling the community what they need. We actually want to be invited in, and when we're invited in by working with another organization or actually coming through a participant or a community member, our main thing is to bring something art-wise, infested with art. I want to say that, like a Coachella. We wish to bring some type of art festival or some type of art activity to your community. So it could be music, it can be food. We just wish to bring art to engage. Mm-hmm. And then once we do that, we find out, and we typically find, those that wish to talk with us. And through us, I guess, just being authentically ourselves, people tell us what they would like. And even if it's one person, we'll just bring that back, or we'll see how we can engage in that. And that just tends to, if somebody sees they can get something, then maybe the next is like, well, you know what? I had this idea. And it just starts to bring, since we have our resources, to see if we can start to put a pause in whatever situation is preventing a person from, succeeding. That's why I stay focused that we are an art organization. And for me, that leads me to stay in the mindset of respecting what my goals are. Because we do a lot of things. Like we have our women's center, Movia's Closet, and this is where for the women and transgender and sex workers, they can actually come to a space and feel safe. A lot of places are male dominated, and who knows what traumas women have or these individuals have to where it can spark trauma. While they're right, maybe 2 hours before everything's about to change. Maybe a day, maybe a couple months before things about to change, but more that they're moving in the right direction and not needing anything to discourage them not to stay on track. So we have the Women's Center. We really focus on harm reduction in the streets. That was one of the biggest funding grants that we end up getting from the county with COVID hitting back in 2018, 2019. I mean, for us to be in California, we get everyone's homelessness. Everyone. I mean, there's no weather better than ours except Hawaii. A lot of people can't get there, but they can find a way to get here. Someone's coming to California. I'm going to California next week to go. You know what? Can I go?
Go with you.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's a lot of people coming here. It's kind of hard to put a dent in our homeless population because we're accumulating everyone else's homeless population. So our homeless population isn't even noticed, because we're getting Mexico's unsheltered and those that want something else. We're getting Ohio's unsheltered and those that want something else. We're getting all the people that want this Hollywood dream. So, we're getting everyone's, we are the America of the States because everyone's coming here.
And we're a huge and unwieldy city, full of different cultures.
We stretch
we can't
so
even
long, So I think a lot of people look, and no shame to New York, no shame to Miami, no shame to my hometown, but California is the mall, Everybody likes Walmart, the Kmart, but you gotta get your money together when you go to the mall, in all these shops. And we're not just any mall. We're the Grove. And we're not even the Grove. I mean, we're like going to Glendale Galleria. It's the Gucci store. And it's, it's just not the regular stores. And it's just not the regular mall. So you have to be prepared and understand that is the light that you're in. This is a huge light. And you have to be ready for it.
It's tough in any set of circumstances.
Yeah, but with community, you could do it. And that's one thing I've noticed. I mean, I wasn't able to sell an art piece or even sell a piece of art for $50, $200. I felt like I was begging somebody to do it. And now it's $5,000, $7,000, but it's able to happen because of community and knowledge. I mean, I sold drugs at one point, and now I can curate, and for 3 hours I can make over $350 just for them booking me for a curation. That's just me hanging a piece 60 inches off the ground. But I didn't know 60 inches off the ground. From that point, I could be paid $150 an hour. But I'm risking my life for $5 and $10 nickel sales. So it's just the knowledge of who you're around and what you learn that makes a big difference.
And I think too, maybe just being present, just sort of opening the door to the community, showing up, doing what you're doing, inviting others to join you. And no pretenses put upon them about it needs to be in this box that I've designed for you. Yeah. Come, join us, be a part of the process. And the process then, I would think, with your murals, the process is part of the finished product.
In this trust net, like me and Ray were speaking earlier, and she brung up, and I'm not sure if she actually knew, but working with the new organization and a new program, she has it's really like been on a database to where you could find all these, or been in a club with all these artists, and she's bringing it up and she's talking about things. And so like I said, you never know when you take all these things and you put it together on how it all is one spider web. Like if I touched it here, it vibrated here, right? I've always wanted to work where everything that I do, it all sits together and able to move together. And so Ray was speaking to me and she was talking about, hey, I got these other things going on. I'm trying to work these workshops this way. And I'm also speaking to these people in Lamert that have some connections. So when Lamert pops up, it rings my bell because I'm like, okay, that's my community. And as she keeps going, she's talking about some of the things that we're doing in Lamert and, you know, and who we can work with in the area. And then she brings up, she says, and it's this one great place called Soul Folks. And I want to make sure that you can know about it. And I'm thinking in my head, like, we're doing good work. I'm thinking, you know, and I'm just hearing it from the point of view of just saying, like,
because that is part of you.
That is part of me, you know, but it's me not parading. It's me. It's me knowing I'm a part of the team. It's me knowing that it's part of my culture, me growing up. Me and this guy, he started the tagging crew I told you about years ago. Nothing but trouble. So Snake Doctor, rest in peace, who's an artist, he just passed a couple years ago. He made this bracelet here. But he used to always tell us when we were kids, you know, we're only 13, 12, while we're tagging, he said, hey, you all are artists. And as soon as you tap into it, it's going to work out. Right. So Akil does a real great job of still letting it be known that Snake was one that believed in us while we're still there in Lamert doing what Snake wanted us to do and what others saw us doing. And so it's like hearing Sidewalk while I'm somewhere and no one is knowing that I'm part of Sidewalk. It's always a joy to hear about the work that we're doing and how we're connecting. But with me just staying in my path and then my partner, outside of me working with working with Soul Folks, is bringing up Soul Folks, saying, hey, Crushow, you need to work with them. We're going to do some things. And, you know, just letting it be known that they're a part of what I'm talking about, making this movement with.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in my head, like, that's just so good
that is so cool.
We are all doing our work in our ways, but it's not me that's bringing it together. I like things when it's not.
You started something. You've opened the doors to so many people to kind of join you without even knowing they're joining you.
I think that's the beautiful part about it. It's like the mural that we did for the Omea. It's a mural showing how the Asian culture and Black culture always coexist with each other in our neighborhoods, even in Skid Row. Mr. Kenny Chow.
That building is right.
Right, Skid Tokyo. I call it Skid Tokyo. It's right on the borderline of Skid Row and Little Tokyo, but Little Tokyo is Skid Row. Little Tokyo used to stretch to Olympic, you know, but through gentrification and through all this stuff and, you know, for the redlining for so long, we have different diasporas could only live in certain places. So throughout the redlining, that's how you have Little Tokyo as it exists. So Skid Row sits or where Little Tokyo would start, and now it's taken over a section of it. So Skid Row is Little Tokyo. That's why the fish markets and things like that are there and seafood. Yeah. But one thing I want people to realize, Skid Row is more than just a transit and a transit area. It's the hardest working part of Los Angeles because from 2:30 in the morning until 6:30, everything's already been moving as far as produce.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a big deal.
Yeah. All the food, all of the fabric.
It is amazing.
All the flowers.
You go down there at 4:30 in the morning.
It's all gone. And those people have kids. So that means they had to get up early enough to take the kids to daycare. Or the kid is there with them. Yeah. You know? So, I mean, it's just the hardest working area, but we'll always think of just the unsheltered and the mental health hospital's been closed, Reaganomics creating things. Yeah. But Skid Row is probably the hardest working area in downtown. I want to say, well, I'll just do downtown. I would say all of LA, but I'm not trying. We work hard all through LA.
Yeah, we do.
But it's where it starts at. You know.
Yeah, it's like the supply line for so many things that happens.
You know, and that's one thing it is.
So we here often talk about the importance of the mother and in utero, you know, the mother's imprint, in that everything that she's going through lands on you. You know, the wonderful, the loving, the terrible, the scary. And we carry that. And we carry that into the world with us. And it's already a weight that's bearing down on, you know, the sort of core of love that we are. And, you know, it's sort of a part of our life's work is to get back to who that is who is that authentic person? And, hopefully we can get to it earlier rather than later, but that is some of the work that we, I think, must do in life, because we can operate as our best human self if we're really who we are authentically. And you've spoken sometimes of Skid Row as sort of being a mother.
Yeah. To stay focused, that mommy just wants you to come home and also be safe, but you think you can get away a lot with mom. If you talk nice, or she won't do it, or she'll spank you next time,
We do like to do what we need to do to appease our mom so that we can exist.
So we can exist, right? But overall, a lot of times you have to go further than that. So I use her as a mother to recognize for myself that she'll give me everything I need and she'll be there for me. But am I doing the best I'm supposed to do? And that's why I use her as the mother, because when it's all said and done, people are constantly, like we look at the homeless situation, well, the unsheltered situation. And we say that the conditions of a person being outside cannot be normal. And so much of it that we've conditioned ourselves to shame them by saying homeless. When overall, if you have your beliefs and you have Jehovah, God, Yeshua, however you see it, then home is anywhere you set foot in because you're protected, right? So I focus on that point because if I worried about the box that I'm going to be in now, then I'm really not doing much to make sure that I'm here when I'm gone. I figure with me being 6'2", my box might not be as wide as Minnie's, but it's going to be long and pretty spacious when I leave, So my box might be bigger than most people's box, So I'm not really worried about this box that I'm living in at the moment. It's about what am I doing before I get in that final box to make sure that I do live on because of what I've done. Yeah. What legacy do I leave behind? What did I leave for my children? Right. How did I stand as a man of my stature and my beliefs? And how many people wish to carry them on when I'm done? Or was it just in vain? I think all that matters.
How do we help humanity while we're here to help humanity?
I think that matters. I've always said I can't get greater until the world gets better. Or I can't get better until the world gets greater. Right. Either way it goes, I have a lot to do within my purpose.
Mm-hmm. Well, the world's not getting better until we face it with love.
Well, you know what? I feel like I need to change it because the world is where it's at. It's us as people. The world is great because I wake up and I see it. We as people need to do differently. I realize that it's either you're a cell or you're a disease. Because this is one world, one body. So I wish to be at least a cell in this. Yeah. So I'm not killing off what we need to make us thrive and live in this. So, I'd rather be a cell than a disease.
Yeah, and bring that forward to your own children after we're gone.
Doing his best of that.
So tell us about this project you did.
The Elmea Apartments. It's honoring the Elmea Cracker Factory and the Elmea family. Also honoring the tradition and the history of Bronzeville. And Bronzeville was a time, as we're speaking on the when the Japanese were put in encampments because of the war that we were in. And during that time, as I said, the Asian and Black community have worked cohesively together, regardless of what it is, but due to conditions, we've been accustomed to living amongst each other and doing business with each other, things of that fashion. From if you go into the communities now, you have so many Asian-owned businesses in the Black community because we work well together. It works. So at that time, in the late or in the early 1940s,
And do you think that part of what made those two communities come together to sort of support each other was that both communities were put upon by the larger white community?
It has something to do with that also, but if we weren't even here constricted in Los Angeles, I mean, some of the first summarized were Moors and of African descent. So it goes way before. But I mean, if you look into that, they might say it was because of some type of conditioning or some type of oppression.
That's true.
You know, so I think everything might have been that. But yeah, more so that in here in Los Angeles and in America because of redlining.
Yep.
You know, we're only able to go in certain places. Don't cross this train track. Don't go that way. So yeah, maybe a lot of it has to do with that. But overall, something beauty comes out of it. You know, same way.
So your mural is celebrating.
It's celebrating the beauty that came out of the 1940s when we had the Bronzeville, because the Japanese business owners were put in encampments, so their businesses were left deserted. And so the blacks that worked for the businesses, they took them over and made sure that they still thrived. And once everything was over with and the Asian community, Japanese community was released from the encampments and they came back to the community, they noticed their businesses were still going on and they didn't have to fight for it. And they were gradually, you know, just gently and, you know, humbly handed back over to the business owners.
What a beautiful coexistence.
Yeah. And so it's to give that history. Yeah. And then to also...
and what a great message.
Yeah, and to give that the community of today and those today, to let them know that we're still in that time of taking care of each other. Yeah. And now this is the Omea building in the Japanese community extending its hand to the black culture and giving housing and giving salvation after coming out of whatever situation they've been in. So it's the same thing. You know, but then also the part that's so beautiful about the mural is it's a mural of two children playing of both descent and both cultures. But I didn't know, I knew how the mural laid out, but when the building's built, you don't know where vents are going.
Oh, yes.
You don't know where cameras are going to be at. You don't
Technical
know where
issues.
all those things, right? You don't know where the door is going to sit. So when they laid the mural down, I think the greatest part about it is the mural has the kids playing and they're blowing bubbles. And in the bubble are the history of little Tokyo and Skid Row and some of the things that make us community and why we exist today. But right where the little young girl, because the kids are 7 and younger, well, the little young girl is blowing out of the wand a bubble. The bubble cam sits right by the bubble wand.
Yeah.
So that means whoever's looking at the mural is a new bubble.
That's right.
You know, so it's actually taking in the history that's still going on today. So, and that was just, the bubbles came, I think the mural design was approved, and then I think the bubbles came like maybe time later, like, you know what, I think we'll have the kids blowing bubbles, because they were playing together, but I had no ball. I had nothing they were playing with. You could just tell they were in the field playing, but I had nothing they were playing with.
And now they're engaged.
And now they're engaged together with this bubble, and then
and the bubbles tell the
2
story.
years later it gets laid down, and then all of a sudden this bubble cam just comes out. It just, things are written, and you never even, I mean, that's one thing I sat back and was like, I couldn't have planned this better. Yeah. I couldn't have looked at the mural later and was like, you know what, I'm going to have the bubble coming right out. Because other than that, when it came out, I'm like, man, they're cutting up this mural. And they're constantly putting little things in it. And then when I saw the bubble, I was like, this was, man.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And Skid Row Care Campus is right next to the Omea building, which is a one-stop shop for the community.
So there are services there?
Services. You get your showers, you get your IDs, you can get your housing facility, you get your housing paperwork done. You can get a caseworker, you can get put onto services. It's everything. And it's a lounge. You don't have a certain time you have to go. Mm-hmm. You can actually sit there, and it's our outdoor community center. and it's beautiful. It's one of the nicest things that we've built, and it was built by the community of Skid Row and the grassroots organizations in Skid Row. So, the services are what we asked for.
Yeah, that's amazing. We should all be aware of this.
Yeah, it's
And you've got your fingers in so many different arenas. I don't know how you have time to do all this.
it's a blessing to be involved, but it's my lifestyle. You know,
Well, it's
with
your
it being
whole
my
life.
culture. Yeah, with it being my culture and being what I'm in, it's to know about it is as much as I can do. To participate and to be a voice of positivity is the best thing I can do. To be involved in it, I can't be great at some of the things I'm at. So I do me, and then when I'm called upon, I bring what we do well to the situation. You know, we all
But
work
that's so
well
great because
together.
you're authentic to who you are.
Yeah, I can only do this because if I was to step outside and to get outside of me doing what my purpose is, then I find myself in a rat race.
Yeah.
And now I become a statistic. I become what the plan was probably meant to be. And those things, because now I'm letting everything else in the stands play with my mind when I have a reason why I'm on the field.
Yeah.
You know, and I might want to shoot the ball, and I might want to go do that, but that's not my job. My job is a certain thing that I'm here to do. So I'll watch those that shoot the ball, and I'll watch those that do their thing, but I'm here to do my job.
Well, and thank you. We're so fortunate that you are doing what you do and that you love what you do.
That's the whole goal. That's why you have me here, because I'm loving what I do.
Because you love what you
It is
do
it.
and you're doing so many things that we all need to know about, and that you're under the radar for me is not okay.
You know, I don't get into the space to where I ask the questions of why I've been through or I go through what I go through. I'm highly honored that I walk in the building and feel the way I do. So I guess what I've been through has molded me to, I wouldn't be who I am as the person. My art wouldn't be what it is. I wouldn't be able to go and probably speak to those in the areas I go to make the connections I make, you know? So respectfully, I take on what I've been through with honor, and I'm proud of it.
Well, and you have compassion for yourself.
Yeah, but it's motivated me to go places that a lot of people wouldn't want to go, but would wish they could get the understanding of knowing what it is, just to know, like, okay, it doesn't mean I want to do it, but I can respect it and I can see the
But also listening to you and you sharing, sort of why you are who you are and what being a human means and how you travel through your day, how you got here. All of that helps others, sort of think about themselves and creatively think about themselves and how they can get to a place where they feel comfortable with their part in humanity.
well,
So thank you.
it's just a blessing to actually be here and have some type of understanding of what we're all here for. At least knowing what I'm here for to hopefully, make a nice judgment for those.
You're making a difference. So a website that we want to talk about, is there some place
Yeah.
people should go to learn more about you?
The sidewalkproject.org, and then showsart.com. And then, yeah, we have, with both of those, we have a workforce program that we're working on to, economically help the areas that we're in the community.
And if I want to wear what you're wearing there, how do I?
Oh, that's one of our partners and one of the social entities that we have, Soul Folks, which is the organization I work with in South LA. That's how I stay connected back home in the area I'm from. I work with the organization in the boutique Soul Folks.
Pretty fabulous looking.
Yeah, we have some real good designers. We are it's a community-driven social entity to where we give space for those. If you have time to help us in the community, then we have time to give you the materials you need to create what you need to creatively. If you're an artist, we have the canvases and the paints for you. If you're a designer, we have all the fabrics and we have the sewing machines from you. If you are an event planner, then we have the room and the community space for that to happen and the community members ready to go. So our thing is, if you have time for the community and to help us build and empower the community, then we have time to help and empower you through your creativity. And we have the space for it.
That's unbelievable. I mean, you're so humble, but like every 3 minutes, you're telling me some other endeavor that is designed to help community and help uplift people.
That's how I'm getting here. So my thing is just to do the same thing that got me here. But not forgetting that the purpose was, we were talking about Sidewalk. And my thing is just talking about the great partners that we move with, or who was involved with me before I helped create our movement with Sidewalk Project. But to stay focused that overall my purpose is the Sidewalk Project. Like, I want to help everywhere that has a sidewalk, and those that don't have sidewalks, they need them.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much, and let's stay in touch.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please follow, rate, and share our podcast, and pass this episode along to someone who might need it. This is And Now Love. Listen to your dreams and live from your heart, like this man.
Thank you so much.